Start with a Flea Flicker to open up the night. And he connects with Galladay.
Sup, everyone. Welcome to the Flea Flicker with Joey D and Timmy B. We are here to recap the final week of the NFL season in 2020, or regular season, I should say, week 17. Joe, how are you doing today, my man?
We're doing great, Timmy B. It's 2021. Season is over for the Eagles. I'm looking forward to next season and the draft already.
Absolutely. And my Ravens got the 5 seed that I wanted. But Joe, before we hop into the 1 o'clock games and the rest of the Sunday slate, obviously your Philadelphia Eagles were a little bit controversial, we will say, in the Sunday night football game. So we have a special segment at the start of this episode with one of our former guests, Erik Sawyer of Splain Life Comedy. He is a New York Giants fan. He wanted to come on this show. So let's go ahead and cut away to that segment talking about that game. Now it's time for the special edition recap on the final game of the 2020 NFL season. The Washington football team beat the Philadelphia Eagles by a score of 20-14, and they win the division and hide away the New York football Giants from winning the division. So because of this, we brought on one of our former guests, Erik Sawyer, who is a Giants fan. Texted me right at 11:30 as soon as that game ended, being like, I want to come on. I need to talk about the Eagles, absolutely tanking and benching everybody. So I know you two both want to talk about this game. We'll kick it off to Erik first. Erik, as a Giants fan, this can't feel good, so I'll let you have the floor.
I mean, what we saw on Sunday night was one of the biggest disgraces in sports history across any league ever. Obviously, I'm a little bit more emotional about this and fired up than I normally would be, given that it obviously did affect my team. But what I want to talk about is not even how this affected the Giants specifically, but just how dumb people are who are defending this move and the terrible defenses that I've seen for this. So obviously, if you're listening to this right now and you're watching this, you know what happened. We don't need to dive into the specifics. The Philadelphia Eagles had the most blatant form of tanking ever seen on a professional sports field when they took out Jalen Hurts to purposely try to lose the game that they very much could have won. Also electing to not kick the game-tying field goal because that would have given them too good of a chance to win. My biggest problem here is that somehow Giants fans and the Giants are now getting criticized for not approving this move. If you just look on Twitter and you see any tweet covering this, whether it's a national reporter, from a player, anyone, the number one response is, well, just win more than 6 games then if you're the Giants. First of all, one of the most important things is it doesn't matter if you think 6 or 7 wins isn't worthy of a playoff team. That doesn't matter at all because it was. That's all that matters at all. So whether they had 6 wins, whether the Giants were like the Dolphins and had 10 wins and missed the playoffs, whether they had 11, 12, it doesn't matter at all. The bottom line is that Sunday night game was going to decide a division winner. So it doesn't matter that you think 6 wins wasn't good enough at all. The other thing is that people keep comparing what the Eagles did to the Steelers and the Chiefs, which is a horrible comparison because the Steelers and the Chiefs both rested players to prepare for the playoffs, to prepare for a Super Bowl run. On top of that, they also actually tried to win the game. This is the biggest difference between what the Eagles have done and any other team this year or previous years who have rested starters, not played certain people either in the beginning of the year, end of the year, whatever it might be. Those teams still tried to win. The Steelers didn't start Ben Roethlisberger, but they still tried to win. And damn, they were close to winning against the Browns anyway. What the Eagles did was just blatantly not try to win the game. There was a lack of effort on fumbles. They took out their fucking starting quarterback, who also is unproven and really could have benefited from being in the game, to test out like a 4-year third-string quarterback who everybody knows sucks. I mean, I could just go on and on. It was the most egregious thing I've ever seen. Obviously, the other whole part of this is just that it was such an embarrassing look for the league because this is the last game of the season, Sunday Night Football, nationally televised, and you have a team pulling this. This is supposed to be a game that you would hope the Eagles could at least try to play spoiler. And if they don't, but the Redskins in. I have zero beef with the Redskins or Washington football team. Sorry. I have zero beef with Washington football team. All my beef is anger towards Doug Peterson, who now has apparently lost control of the locker room because everyone on the team hates him. And the entire city of Philadelphia and anybody who defends this, because it was the most pathetic thing I've ever seen.
All right, Joe, as an Eagles fan, your rebuttal, your defense.
Well, nice to know that Sawyer already thinks I'm an idiot and just hates me because I'm an Eagles fan. So, that's great. All right. So I'll refute a couple of these. So number one, let's see. What was it? The fact that this is the last game of the Sunday night game is the last game of the season and it had playoff implications. I think that's really the only reason this is a big deal. If God damn it, hold on, I'm sorry, my cat is doing some fuck shit. What the fuck are you doing? Get down, you motherfucker. I'm sorry. All right, my bad. All right, we're locked in. All right, so if this was a 1:00 game, it wouldn't have been a big deal. If there were no playoff ramifications, it wouldn't be that big a deal. Obviously that is what the case was. So, that is what it is. There was a more egregious example of a team tanking than this. A couple years ago when the Buccaneers were facing the Saints and were in contention for the number 1 overall pick, they put in their backup quarterback, I think at the time, Mike Glennon, and he took a safety. They put him in. It was a 1-point game against the Saints. They were winning. They put him in. They took a safety on purpose to secure the number 1 overall pick, which they then went and got Jameis Winston. So obviously it worked out great for the Buccaneers. But so it's a little bit of a different scenario since that's for the number 1 pick and this is for the number 6 overall pick versus the number 9 overall pick. My thinking going into this game was I did not want us to win this game. I really wanted the better draft pick. This is a team that is old, it is expensive, and it is not talented. We are not going to be able to we don't have any money to sign any free agents. None. Maybe one if we purge the roster. Can't bring anybody new in free agency. It's got to be through the draft. This is a team that has been historically bad at drafting. That number 6 overall pick versus the number 9 overall pick, especially if you're considering taking a quarterback in this draft, that number 6 overall pick is very important compared to the number 9 overall pick. The other thing is going into this game, I think everybody should have kind of known this is what was expected. I mean, we benched the entire roster essentially. It's backups. I mean, there are a couple guys in there. Jason Kelsey, Zach Ertz, Brandon Graham, guys that in that sense, this motherfucker. In that sense, stop it. God almighty.
Your cat disagrees with you. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
He's on my side.
I know. She's pissed. But so in that sense, I see that I lost my train of thought. This fucking cat. Because the injury report was saying that everyone was going to be benched. Miles Sanders was out. Alshon Jeffrey was out. Dallas Goedert, like almost the entire roster. So we knew that they were benching just about everybody, even though there weren't any injuries or significant injuries for these guys. And then Doug Peterson told Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels, Nate Sudfeld was probably going to get some playing time. Brandon Graham and Jalen Hurts both knew that he was going to get some playing time in this game going into the game. So I get why you're upset. I get why some people are upset. It's the integrity of the game, and I get that. And I do agree with the point where I would have my gripe with it is the Jalen Hurts. He very well will be our starting quarterback next year. And we want to still get the chance to evaluate him. And that playing experience is important, especially when you have a chance to go out and win. But with that being said, this man was 7 of 20 for 74 yards and an interception in this game. He was not executing the offense. So there could be an argument that Nate Sudfeld, who actually balled out in the preseason in 2018, he could have. You never know. All he does is throw 9 balls. He just throws them into the moon and hopes for the best. But sometimes it works. So I don't know. I mean, and I actually, with the call to go for it on 4th down rather than kick the field goal, who was it? Quez Watkins was wide open. Jalen Hurts just missed him. The opportunity to go up and win, or and get ahead was there, and he missed him. And that's my confusion with this is they clearly were trying to win this game for like a lot of it. You know, like there were multiple trick plays called in this game. I don't know. You all saw the Greg Ward pass. This guy was a former QB at Houston. Since we've had him on the roster, I've been saying, let's do a trick play with Greg Ward. And you save it for a meaningless Week 17 game against the football team when you're eliminated and you didn't want to win the game. Like, I don't understand. There's a lot of this that I don't get. And I definitely think that, you know, it should have been handled better. But at the same time, this is probably the smartest thing the team did all year in terms of looking ahead towards the future and don't live in the past in a meaningless game. And let me ask you this, Sawyer. Last year when the Giants were, you guys were in contention for the number 2, number 3 overall pick, and Pat Shurmur was your head coach at the end of the year. I remember a lot of Giants fans, including my buddy James, who was on the show, and I watched the game with, wanted them to lose that game so they could get the number 2 overall pick and get Chase Young. And would you have been upset if they had thrown the game to get a talent like Chase Young?
So here's my whole point with this. And there's everything you said to me, there's one logical defense that you brought up that I even wrote down before we started this, because there's one defense to me about what the Eagles did. A lot of what you said I'm going to refute because I think it's utter nonsense. But the one logical thing that you said is the only defense for this. The only defense for this is that as a fan, at least, is that you would rather them lose the game for the draft pick. That's the defense, because that's what they were doing. Mentioning that, the Giants should have won more than 6 games has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Mentioning the Steelers, the Chiefs, you mentioned
it doesn't.
And you mentioned the Bucks. We could argue all day about what's more egregious. Doesn't matter.
That is relevant.
It's not, because this could be the second most egregious thing ever. It doesn't make it acceptable. So it doesn't matter that something else was more egregious. This is still,
but nobody was talking about that. Nobody's ever.
Then you can go yell at the media and people 3 years ago for that. It has nothing to do with this. This is still pathetic. If it didn't get enough coverage then, it should be. I'm glad it's at least getting the coverage now for this pathetic move. I was absolutely wanting the Giants to lose that game against the Redskins. I tweeted about it. I was furious that they won. But there's a difference between actively wanting your team to lose because of a draft pick and the team actively not trying to win a game. The fact that the Eagles didn't play all those guys you mentioned was on one end, I can understand it, because if people have nagging injuries, there's no reason to make it worse. On the other hand, it was also the level that they did it was a clear representation going into the game that they weren't trying to win. So that was Exhibit A. The whole pulling Jalen Hurts thing was a over-the-top moment where it became unbelievably clear. That was the whole significance of that. Saying that they pulled him because of his bad stats, another completely ridiculous thing. They would not have pulled him if they needed that win. They would not have pulled him. I don't care if he was 7 for 20. I don't care if he was 1 for 20. They were not pulling him for Sudfeld if they tried to win that game. So the only logical excuse is from your perspective that I will accept is you're happy because it got them the better draft pick. It does not excuse Peterson for what he did, because he should not be doing that. The players should not be doing that. The players don't do that. That's why you had those, sideline shots of Jalen Hurts being pissed off. You heard reports today that 2 defensive players had to be held back from, basically fighting Peterson. Then other players during the game were going up to him and telling him that it's bullshit. This is the whole thing. Like, to me, it's just absurd that the Giants and Giants fans and Joe Judge came out with his statement today where he didn't once mention how this actually infected the Giants. He was strictly talking about the integrity of the game and that you should always be trying to win is priority number 1. And he's getting, a lot of flack now. He's getting either equally love or equally hate for it. When in reality, he's not talking about the Giants. He's strictly talking about the idea that the team was not trying to win that game at the end of the game. They clearly were not trying. And I understand from your perspective, you're happier with the 6th pick. It doesn't mean that it excuses what the team did. And here's my other point. It's for people like you who are okay with the fact that the team actively tried to tank. Would you be just okay with the NFL just saying, let's just do forfeits from now on. Because if you're not okay with that, to me, there's a huge gap in your logic, because there's no reason that game should have even have been played if they're just going to actively not try to win. If you're going to say we're going to rest people so they don't get hurt, if we're going to rest people so they don't get hurt for next year, just don't play the game then. Just forfeit. Just quit. Why?
Well, I think it's also because you also have the opportunity to evaluate a lot of guys who are on your practice squad on the fringe of the roster.
You don't need to do that.
Who very well may be contributing on this team next year. We're a bad team, Sawyer. This is what bad teams do. It's been a long time since I've been here, but here we are. I mean, this roster is terrible. Like we gotta find some guys on the bottom of the roster who can do something. And Doug Peterson, the team's mind, this was a preseason game. I don't know if it was Doug's call. I don't know if this was Howie's call. I don't know if it came from Jeffrey Lurie. And I agree. I would have liked to see, but that's the thing. In the first half, and for a lot of the game, even you could say the first 3 quarters, they were trying. Like, again, those trick plays, like Jalen Hurts, he was making a lot of plays with his legs. They were trying. And that's why
trick plays is not trying to win. That's more trying out new concepts that you're interested in that you wouldn't have done in a game that you actually cared to win. Like that, like it doesn't, if they needed that. Put down film. What?
Now you're not going to.
I mean, they just ran wide.
They meaningless game to put.
They ran wide receiver passes. It's not like they ran like a Philly special or some crazy 2-point conversion.
I can't remember the exact plays, but there were different trick plays than I had seen them run all year. And I've been calling for us to use Greg Ward to throw since he was a former quarterback all season, and now they do it. So like that's my gripe with it. Like there's a little bit of disconnect. Like, part of the game they're trying to win, part of the game they're trying to lose. Like I would like to understand what their thought process was going into this, and kind of who made this call. Again, as a fan, this is what I wanted to have happen. This is not how I wanted it to happen. I'm a football fan. I respect the integrity of the game, and I feel for guys like Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Zach Ertz, who have given their all to the city of Philadelphia for their whole careers, and this very well could be all of their last games in Philadelphia. So I have no doubt that those guys were going out there and giving it their all, and I'm sure it probably really hurt to have to see the team do this instead, but it's also a business. At the end of the day, it's a business, and we're eliminated. There is no benefit from winning this game whatsoever for the Eagles, except for maybe some momentum going into next season. Something from you see something from Jalen Hurts, but again, this was the most logical solution, or I don't want to say solution because there's no solution to the fucking mess we've put ourselves in, but it's the logical move to lose this game and not go up to the number 9 pick and further screw yourselves over in the draft than you probably already will, Howie Roseman. So
sure, but
that's kind of my take on it. I'm about it, but I understand. I understand where you're coming from.
No, and I understand what you're saying, that the logic says that because that win doesn't mean as much as the 3 positions in the draft will matter. And I totally understand that. But if you're going to actively not try to win the game, the NFL should say, fuck you, you lose your first round pick. And the way that they were so egregious with it, Roger Goodell should come in. Like, there should be an investigation. It was so obvious. Like, I understand the logic of that, but that's a huge problem. If that's actively happening, because here's the thing, even like I saw on Twitter, people were saying, well, the Dolphins, the whole fan base had tank for Tua. That was a slogan for an entire year. But even the Dolphins went out and actually tried to win games. The front office crippled them. They traded away assets for, future draft picks to try to, worry about the future. But the team and the coach still went out there and they won 5 games, more than the front office was even happy with. This was the first time I've seen a coach in a team just have the game plan of let's play it, and then if we're in this, we're just not going to play. And like I don't care that he said subfield, that they talked about it pregame. Talking about it pregame doesn't make it any more defensible. It just makes it them more blatant about it. Like none of the pregame stuff, none of that matters. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that they clearly tried to not win this game. And that's a big problem. And obviously as a Giant fan, it's incredibly frustrating that you have a team that didn't care that a division rival was going to win the division on their field. They didn't have the pride. They didn't have the integrity of the game, and to go out there and try to win the game. And, I'm loving now that I'm seeing all these reports of, the whole report before the game came out that Wentz and him and Peterson's relationship is completely irreparable. Now you have, Hurts pissed off. You have other players pissed off. The other thing is like that, they're going to have to be answering for this. They're going to be answering it during the offseason, because this was not strictly, obviously being a Giant fan, we're the focus of the anger, but you saw, national NFL reporters all over the place talking about how they've never seen anything like this. So I hope Peterson doesn't get fired, because I think he sucks, and I would love to watch him continue to rip and destroy the organization from the inside out. But we'll see. Do you think he's staying?
Right. Well, I do think he's staying, and I think that the fact that he tanked is further evidence of him knowing that his job is secure. And that's kind of my other point with it. If you know that you're going to be here next year, and you know that this team is bad, and you know that this year was terrible, like he could have very easily gotten fired after the season and it would have been justified. Now you're going into next season with less money. You're purging the roster. You have to find a way to get talent on this team. That might be what saves his job. What if number 6 gets us Jamar Chase? And that's what him and Jalen Hurts are able to revitalize the offense together. And we have a great year next year. I'm just saying, it's not likely. I'm not counting on this, but I'm trying to put in Doug Peterson and try to understand a little bit of where he and the organization are coming from, because I agree. I do not like the way that it happened. I think it's hilarious that now Philadelphia is the villain again, and I love it. But I think that this just is further evidence that Peterson knew that he would be back next season, and he saw this as an opportunity to add talent for next year, because next year, if this team is this bad again, he's gone. Like, there's no way that he'll be back. So
right.
That's kind of my other take on it. He knew that he'd be back, and that kind of makes sense there.
My last final point of this is, like, again, I've said it, but I understand it from your perspective of, you didn't win the game, so you you clearly understand why I'm upset and why people are upset. I guess my final thing is, if you're an Eagles fan who is okay with what they did, okay, I disagree with you. I would not be okay with it. But if you are, you should still at least shut your mouth and not worry and not get offended that people are complaining. And don't act like you don't understand why people are complaining. Take your 3 better draft picks and shut up about it. Like, don't start making excuses about what they did and try. Just, what they did. We all know what they did. They tanked. They absolutely tanked. And they deserve all the criticism that comes with it. Yeah. You don't get it both ways. That's my whole point. Like, it's obviously not like the Astros, but like there's the biggest problem that people have with the whole Astros scandal from the Astros standpoint is when they try to act like they don't understand why people are mad at them. Like, you can't have it both ways. So, but Tim, I want to know. I want to know where you're at with this.
My thing is, it all comes down to
I haven't heard from Tim either.
My thing is, it all comes down to the timing of when it happened. It was a 3-point game, and it was at the end of the third quarter. So the Eagles were still in a position to win. And I know Peterson said Sudfeld was going to get some time, which is fine. In week 17, when you're eliminated, you generally say things like, we want to get everybody some time. And if Jalen Hurts had 3 interceptions at halftime and Sudfeld came in, that's a little bit more justified. Or if the football team was up 24-0, then it's more justified. Then it's like, okay, like the Eagles are kind of throwing in the white towel now. So, fine. But they were in a position to win. And I would rather be in a position where we lose that game by 3-6 points and keeping Jalen Hurts in and answering, hey, look, we were in a position to win. We were going to go win the game, instead of, to the question of, well, where was Sudfeld? You said you were going to play him at some point in this game. I would have been like, yo, like we were trying to win this game. So I think it all comes down to the timing and the situation that the game was in. I think that's what's frustrating, is that the Eagles could have very much have won that game. All they needed was a touchdown or kicking that tying field goal. So I think that's what it came down, for me at least, was the timing and when it happened in the game.
Also, Joe, would you have been okay if a report?
No, I agree.
Report came out on Sunday and said Doug Peterson just called the league office, or the Eagles did, and they just forfeited the game, and it never even happened?
So, no, I did not see anything about that.
No, I'm saying, would you? No. Would you have been okay?
Ask me again.
Would you have been okay if that happened? If they just said, "No, we're not going to play. We're quitting." Because if you're okay with them tanking,
no, I wouldn't have been okay with it.
But what's the difference?
Because, I mean, there's still players on the roster you want to evaluate. I mean, there's still young guys that might be on this team. I mean, hell, look at all the DBs and O-linemen that had to come in for us this year. I mean, we have Matt Pryor and Brett Toth and Nate Herbig starting for us in Week 17. What if that is a meaningful game in Week 17, and that's when these guys are coming in for the first time? You're already evaluating for next year at this point. So that's why I'm very okay with us playing it and treating it like a preseason game. But I do agree with Tim and with you. If we're going to lose and if we're going to try to tank, I wish it had been done differently. Like,
right.
Call some shitty plays for Jalen Hurts or something. Like, don't make it that blatant that you're putting in Nate Sudfeld and, you're actively trying to lose. Like, at least make it look like you're trying, like you had been for 3 quarters, and then lose the game. Then this isn't even a conversation.
Well,
then
Joe,
people are just mad at Doug Peterson for a bad play call.
Joe, I got a question for you. And obviously the football team is still a division rival, but let's say that this game was the Cowboys and it was like, you beat the Cowboys, then, you eliminate the Cowboys from the playoffs, and it's not the football team. So if you beat the Cowboys, then the Giants or, the football team or somebody else is in the playoffs. Would you be feeling the same about this?
No, I would not. I hate the
right.
Cowboys so much.
Because I remember
Cowboys so much.
In 2015, I was at the Steelers-Ravens game where Ryan Mallett was our quarterback, and I was like, all right, let's lose this game, get the number 3 and number 4 pick. We stopped them on 4th down on their first drive. Then Ryan Mallett went and scored a touchdown. And I was like, you know what? Fuck this draft pick. Let's go beat the Steelers. And we ended up with pick number 5 anyway, so we only moved down 2 or 3 spots.
And it's like going into the game, I'm like, I would love for us to lose. And then as soon as the game starts and Jalen Hurts scores the first touchdown, I'm like, let's fucking go. I'm just, once the game starts, like, I'm hyped and I'm rooting for my team. But at the end of the day, like, I still knew the most rational and the best thing for this team was to lose this game. That's just the facts. But the way that it happened, I agree, could have been handled a lot better and a lot differently. And, we'll see. Maybe Nate Sudfeld's our starter next year. You never know. QB factory.
QB factory of the Eagles.
Man up Roger Goodell and take away their draft picks. Take away the team. Just get rid of Philadelphia football for at least 10 years. That's what I would do.
That they should just announce right now. They should say whoever wins the Super Bowl gets the Eagles number 6 pick, because then it would make the playoffs much more interesting.
Hell yeah. Nah, just give it to the Giants. Ultimate slap in the face.
That'd be
so
fucked. I've been saying this for a while now. Somebody made a deal with the devil for us to win that Super Bowl, and it's all been very, very downhill from there. So I think we're gonna go through like a couple years of purgatory now, and we'll see if we get back. But this stings a lot less knowing that we at least got that one Super Bowl finally. I'll put it that way.
That's cute, having one.
Got one. Better than nothing.
It's true. Hard to argue with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, any final words from you, Erik or Joe, about how this all unfolded?
No, just fuck the Eagles, and if you're okay with what happened, you're a sad, small little man. To anyone listening out there.
Thanks, Erik. Good guy,
all right.
man. Good guy. You
Hey,
know?
Erik, thank you so much. We'll definitely get your playoff picks for our weekend show. So start thinking about those in the next couple of days, and we'll shoot you a text to get your picks.
Awesome, man. Thanks, guys, for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. You have a good one. Hope you guys enjoyed that segment talking about the football team winning the division in Philadelphia. I think I didn't talk for like the first 20 minutes, so that was probably the longest I went without talking on this show. But Joe, let's hop into the recap of the rest of the games. We're starting off with the Minnesota Vikings beating the Detroit Lions 37-35, and I'm really glad that a lot of these meaningless games were high scoring. Lions were in it. They just missed out on a couple of 2-point conversions, missed some extra points as well. You went with the Vikings, Joe. I went with the Lions, so you are 1-0. I am 0-1. Any thoughts? My only thought from this game, Joe, and I got to bring them up, is Justin Jefferson setting the rookie receiving record and the video releasing of when the Eagles drafted Jalen Reagor. The whole Vikings front office was like, they took Jalen Reagor. Let's take Justin Jefferson. So that was my only thought from the game, but good to see both teams, having some fun out there and scoring some points. But any thoughts from this game, Joe?
Yeah, when I was talking to my buddy James about this game, he was feeling really good about the Lions. Potentially Matt Stafford's last game ever as a Detroit Lion. Potentially Adrian Peterson's last game ever in the NFL. And he was just riding high with the stories in that game. Mm-hmm. But to me, logic was just like, these Vikings, they got Adam Thielen and some rookie wide receiver who's okay. Kirk Cousins, who's been playing well. And there's no Jeffrey Okudah in Detroit. There's no other secondary players of note in Detroit. They're going to pass all over him. That's what happened. It was a great game. A lot of fun to watch. Matt Stafford, you're a baller. Marvin Jones had the game of his career. A lot of fun to watch. But, the logical pick in this game in my mind was the Vikings. So, they got that win. And, it was a fun one, though. Love to see it.
Absolutely. And another game that seemed logical, but was very tense for Patriots fans. The Patriots beat the Jets 28-14. The score would suggest otherwise, but the Jets were up 14-7, for most of the game. And the Patriots really, bear down in the second half to make those adjustments. And as I said in the preview, Bill Belichick was not losing this game. He just doesn't lose the game to the Jets. Adam Gase is fired. It happened, Joe. But that's my only takeaway is the Patriots end on a good note, end on a win-win 28-14. Any thoughts from you on this game?
No, you pretty much said it all. Hallelujah. Adam Gase is gone. Maybe Sam Darnold, can get some help. Maybe they replace him with quarterback. Who knows? We'll see what happens. It'll be a lot of turnover coming this offseason, I think, around the league. And it's going to be really interesting to see kind of what shapes up as, the new front offices, head coaches, players going different places. There's going to be a lot of turnover. I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's like 6 or 7 head coach openings and about 5 or 6 GM openings as well. So it should be a fun couple of weeks as we hear of some playoff coordinators and coaches interviewing when they have the time, and then who hires first, second, third, all that stuff. And now switching to some important games, the other AFC East game, the Buffalo Bills dominated the Miami Dolphins. The Bills win 56-26. And my takeaway from this is Bills good, Bills scary in the playoffs. I do not want to play the Bills in the playoffs. Second thought from this game was, yay, Dolphins lose. Ravens got the 5 seed, which is what I wanted. But then the big thought is, and a lot of people are talking about this, Miami has the 3rd pick now from the Houston Texans, and people are actually like thinking that they might take another quarterback. And you just don't do that when you draft Tua. And he's shown he has won football games. Yes, he hasn't been looking good in the last couple of games, but to not get one of the first, offensive tackles off the board, or maybe like a Jamar Chase, like a wide receiver for him, is just silly. Like I don't know your thoughts, but what were your thoughts from the Bills winning this game?
Well, I picked the Dolphins to win this game because I really thought the Bills were going to rest a lot of people in this one, and they did not. So, didn't happen. And, even at full strength, fighting as hard as they could, Miami wasn't able to do enough. I'm pretty sure the Dolphins GM came out today and said they are rolling with Tua for 2021, that they are very happy with what they saw of him in 2020. He didn't light it up. He wasn't Justin Herbert. And I think that's what Dolphins fans and a lot of, casual fans are, kind of locked in on. I mean, yeah, Justin Herbert put up insane numbers for a rookie this year, while Tua did not, and they're like, oh, well, now we got to get someone else. Like, you don't know if anyone else is going to be better. Tua showed you that he has the ability to win games. Go out and keep surrounding him with some talent and, continue building that franchise up. I mean, bad teams, what they do is they continue to take quarterbacks over and over. So we'll get to the QB factory and what they're going to do in the draft at some point this offseason. But that's what bad teams do. Don't be a QB factory, Miami. You don't need to do it.
Hey, if anything, you might want the Dolphins to take a quarterback. That way it leaves some of these offensive tackles and wide receivers. Yeah.
I do. That's what I want. Just, they shouldn't, but I would love to see it.
Absolutely. And the next game, the Falcons, another team who has an early pick, I believe they're right with the Eagles around 4, 5, 6, 7. They lost to the Buccaneers 44-27. The Buccaneers solidified the number 5 seed, and they'll be playing at the football team on Wild Card Weekend. Again, Joe, I know the Buccaneers are putting up points, but these are against not as great defenses. So we'll see what happens against the football team. But it's hard to deny that for me saying like, hey, like this team isn't having some sort of momentum going into the playoffs because we're about to get to the best team in the NFL after this game. But what were your thoughts from this Buccaneers win? And do you think that they can carry this momentum against, going from the Falcons and the Lions in the recent weeks to the football team is a huge step defensively?
It is, but if you're a team like the Buccaneers and the Baltimore Ravens who are beating up on Jacksonville Jaguars and who else was it, Timmy D? Was it Cleveland? Someone
Everybody,
else?
Baby. We Giants, the Bengals.
Yeah, you had a nice December. Yeah, you guys are on a hot streak too. So I hope Tennessee doesn't do what they did to you last year. But it was a good game. Thank God Mike Evans is okay. Non-contact injury. But this is why they brought in Antonio Brown. It's really cool to see him, just go off with Tom Brady. And, this is a scary wide receiver core. When they're hot, they can put up 40 points a game and, be right there with Mahomes. So it's really just that defense and, that offensive line, really just got to kind of clean everything up. It'll be really fun to see what happens in the playoffs with this Buccaneers versus the Washington football team. Who, by the way, did not mention this point, but I just remembered it. The Washington football team is who I wanted in the playoffs the whole time because now they're farther away from a quarterback, and that's what they need. That team is the biggest threat in the division, in my opinion. So I'm all about it. Falcons might be getting a quarterback too. They have the number 4 overall pick. That'll be a new head coach, a new GM, new regime altogether. We might have just seen Matt Ryan's final game in Atlanta. So a lot of really interesting storylines to keep an eye on in Atlanta. Same with Julio Jones. He could be a trade casualty as well. Atlanta's got to figure this out. I mean, teams that are in the top 5, unless you're the Browns, the Jaguars, the Jets, usually not drafting in the top 5 a lot, consecutively. So Falcons have an opportunity to take a guy that they like at number 4. They don't know when they're going to have the chance to do so again. So a lot of interesting things to keep an eye on in Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it too with the Ravens getting momentum, and that's the next game we're talking about. We beat the Bengals 38-3. And like I was saying with the Buccaneers, didn't want to eat my words with the Buccaneers and then contradict myself right here. But we're getting the momentum at the right time. And like the Buccaneers and like the Ravens have been doing in their last couple of weeks when they're playing these teams like the Bengals and the Giants and the Falcons and the Jaguars, this is how you're supposed to beat these teams. And I think that's why a lot of people are saying that the Ravens not only are getting momentum, but are scary because we've seen the Steelers lose to the Bengals. We've seen, the football team, we've been seeing some of these actual playoff teams either losing or playing closer games, with the Titans almost losing to the Texans, so we've seen these teams play closer games where the Ravens are beating these teams by 35 points. And we'll talk about the Ravens in our playoff pick show later in a couple of days. So that's all I really have to say about the Ravens. We look good, and I swear to God, if we abandon the run in this playoff game again, Greg Roman needs to go. But we'll talk more about that in a couple of days. But Joe, any thoughts from the Ravens' dominant performance in Cincinnati?
J.K. Dobbins, coming on hot. We love to see that. That man is running hard on Sunday, and this is the time where I was really surprised they activated Mark Ingram for this game after being a healthy scratch the week before. I would just be riding Dobbins and Gus the Bus and Lamar. So I don't know what's gonna happen with Mark Ingram, but I love what I'm seeing out of J.K. Dobbins. Like you said, I really hope they don't abandon the run. This Titans defense is not the defense it was last year. I think this should be a high-scoring game, and the Ravens hopefully able to contain them better than they did earlier this year. But no, they didn't have Calais Campbell or Brandon Williams that game, so it should be a good one. Don't want to spoil any predictions yet, but like you said, Ravens did what they need to do in December. They're going into the playoffs on a win streak. That's all you can ask for. You beat the teams on your schedule.
Absolutely. And I said that at Thanksgiving when we were 7-5.
Unless you're tanking.
Unless you're tanking. But I said that, around Thanksgiving. I was like, hey, look, I know we're 7-5, but our December is bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
And we did win all those games. And now the other AFC matchup, Joe, Cleveland Browns are in the playoffs for the first time since 2002, and they did what they were supposed to do, winning in, and they beat the Steelers JV squad and Mason Rudolph by only 2 points. If they had gotten the 2-point conversion, it would have gone into overtime. Well, I guess the Browns were in field goal range when they put the game away, but 24-22, this is a rematch next week in the playoffs, or in a couple of days when this comes out. So my question from this, Joe, is, and we'll talk about this in a couple of days for a preview as well, are you worried that the Steelers were so close, knowing that they weren't, they were just making sure that everybody was healthy and they were just trying to, get out of this game healthy and alive and starting Mason Rudolph? Because if I'm a Browns fan, I'm feeling good we're in the playoffs, so I'm kind of like, maybe not if we're playing the Steelers again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. The Browns were at full strength this game going against the Steelers JV squad, and they barely won. And now what we're hearing is that there's been a COVID outbreak in Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski has it. I believe that a couple other coaches and their starting guard, Joel Bitonio. One of their best players, he's also got it. So, now, instead of being at full strength going against the JV team, now you are undermanned going against the varsity squad. So I don't think it's going to be pretty for the Browns. They made it to the playoffs. My heart really goes out to Joel Bitonio. Kevin Stefanski gave him the game ball after the game. This very well could have been how he contracted COVID, because they gave him the game ball. He's the longest tenured player, been through a lot of losses, and has just been a stud, kind of like Joe Thomas for the Browns for all those years. And now to have him gonna miss this game with COVID, it's really tough to see. So my heart really goes out to him. Sucks, Cleveland, but now you can at least tell yourself after you lose this game, well, if we were at full strength, we would have had a chance. But no, you wouldn't have. Like we said, at their full strength, they barely beat the JV team. If these teams were at full strength and going 100%, it would probably be like the first Steelers and Browns game where, what was it, like 35-7, something like that?
It wasn't pretty, I can tell you that. And another big injury for the Browns on the defensive line, Olivier Vernon ruptured his Achilles too, which is huge for Pittsburgh because, and we'll talk about this, they really need to establish the run game pretty well. That way their wide receivers can run around for Ben to throw around. Now to the NFC East, the other game, the important game, the Giants beating the Cowboys 23-19. If the Eagles had not tanked, they could have been the division champs. But the big thing with this game for me was the Giants almost lost it. It was getting a little wet there at the end. They had an interception in the end zone, and all they needed was a first down to put away the game. Wayne Gallman got the first down, and then he had a little oopsies, dropped the ball, but luckily his butt was on the football, which apparently is possession in the NFL. So they kept the ruling on the field was Giants ball, and it was just one of those, you couldn't overturn it because you couldn't find a clear recovery when the pile joined up. If they called it Cowboys ball, they wouldn't have overturned it either. So that's the key. The Giants ended up winning the game, and Cowboys, might get another wide receiver. They are a wide receiver factory in the draft. So Giants win, Cowboys lose. Joe has to feel good that the Cowboys lost.
Oh yeah, you love to see that, and even better with that fumble and no clear recovery. Oh man, this is sweet karma, sweet justice for a couple years ago. I think it was an important game to potentially go to win the NFC East, and the Cowboys kicked off. I think the Eagles like kickoff, and the Eagles came out of the pile with the ball, but there was no clear recovery, and the ruling on the field was Cowboys' ball, so they kept the ball. This is sweet justice, baby. I love to see it. God, I hate Dallas, and it's beautiful. It's going to be interesting to see how both of these teams handle the offseason. If you're the Cowboys, what do you do with Dak? What you got to figure out this. Jerry Jones has already contradicted himself a little bit just today going on the radio. I think he was like, yeah, Dak has all the leverage. Like, he's a great quarterback. We're going to pay him what he wants. And then like, well, we've also got to pay the defensive guys. And, if you're paying someone else, you can't pay those guys. So we'll see what happens in Jerry world. Maybe Dallas, they take a page out of the Eagles book and start going QB factory too. Who knows? We'll see, but yeah, it was a hard fought win by the Giants. I won with my buddy James, big man. He was devastated Sunday night. It was hilarious actually. But it was a good game. You saw a lot of good plays from Daniel Jones. You saw some not a great game from Andy Dalton. But as a Eagles fan, just watching and rooting against the Cowboys, I loved it. And just as a fan of football, I enjoyed watching a watchable football game compared to the garbage I've been forced to watch as an Eagles fan this year. So that was a nice change up. I enjoyed the game.
And it's definitely nice as an Eagles fan going into your game, win or lose. You're like, hey, at the end of the day, Cowboys are on the same couch as we are next week. And, if the Cowboys had won this game and the Eagles were like, yeah, we tanked because we didn't want our rival, the Cowboys, to make the playoffs, everybody would be like, yeah, okay, fair. That's fine. Yeah. But now moving on, Joe, we have the Chargers beating the Chiefs 38-21. Chiefs weren't playing anybody. They were resting everybody, Mahomes included. They still put up 21 points.
Tank.
They were tanking for the first round bye, but it was still scary to see that offense really was scoring some points early on. I think it was 7-7, 14-14, 21-21. And then once they sat some more players offensively and defensively, Justin Herbert took over, threw the ball very well. Definitely offensive rookie of the year. Maybe J.K. Dobbins is, non-quarterback offensive rookie of the year. I think they should be two separate awards. But definitely Justin Herbert looks good. And Chargers fired Anthony Lynn, and that's a nice little position right there that you're in with a nice young, I don't want to say proven, but a proven rookie. We'll say that he has the ability. And so that's a nice little coaching job, especially in sunny LA too. But Joe, any thoughts from Justin Herbert in this game?
I'll say this on the other side. Poor man's Nate Sudfeld, did a great job doing what the Chiefs want to do and lose. So great job, Chad Henne. Did the job. Nate Sudfeld and Doug Peterson are proud. It's an attractive job in LA. I thought Doug Peterson would be a really logical position for him. Let me ask you, between LA and Jacksonville, which one do you think would be more appealing to a head coach?
Jacksonville, 100%.
Jacksonville. Really? Explain.
You got the number 1 pick. You have another first round pick. You have 2 second round picks. I think in total, the Jaguars have 11 picks, and they have one of the most cap room. I think they have like 80 million right now in cap space. So that, to me, especially with the new GM, that to me is more attractive than going to a team like Houston or an LA who might not have as much draft capital or money. But yes, you do have the pieces in place. But I'm a big fan. Obviously, when Harbaugh came in, we drafted Joe Flacco in the first round. That was, the Harbaugh-Flacco era for a handful of years, got us a Super Bowl. So I would say, like, hey, look, if we draft Trevor Lawrence number 1, this is not going to be an instant we're going to be good. Whereas, like, if you go to the Chargers or even the Texans or even the Falcons, you'd be like, a lot of people will be like, the pieces are in place. You should be somewhat competitive this year and then, like, in the playoffs the next year. Whereas a team like Jacksonville, it's kind of like, hey, we know it might take a year or two, but let's see how it goes,
Yeah. Okay, I like that. Yeah, I saw something about Shad Khan, their owner, saying he was going to have, like, control or involvement on the personnel side. That kind of made me a little bit wary about that. as head coach, if you're going into that position, you don't want a Jerry Jones type of owner, who's meddling. Right. And then also, in LA, they've just got a little bit more proven talent on both sides of the ball. Whereas Jacksonville, you've got a lot of draft picks and a lot of potential to put it together, but not a lot of real proven talent there yet. So it's interesting. Mm-hmm. I think that both to me, those are the two most appealing spots, to a head coach. So, I'm very interested to see, if Urban Meyer really comes out of retirement and coaches Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. That could be, a pretty interesting team to follow then. But then, a more not under the radar, but less flashy guy like, Brian Dabble or mm-hmm. Arthur Smith for the Titans, or Eric Bieniemy for the Chiefs, to be the head coach in Los Angeles. Those could be pretty dangerous duos for years to come. So interesting to see what happens there. But what we got next on deck, Timmy B?
Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints beating the Carolina Panthers by a score of 33-7. I went with the Panthers. I thought it would be a nice little momentum game to end the year. I thought the nice young defense would kind of stop Drew Brees, especially without a running game. But I was wrong, Joe, and the Saints dominated. They win. Unfortunately, they did not get the help that they needed to be the number 1 seed, but they do have the number 2 seed, and they get the Chicago Bears wild card weekend in the first ever NFL game on Nickelodeon. So that'll be fun to talk about. But again, like I was saying with the Ravens, when you have a good playoff team against a not good, not playoff team, you should be winning these games 33-7 and 30-10 and all that stuff. So that was just my takeaway. Saints look pretty good and got some much needed momentum, especially with Al Kamara to still put up 30 points.
Yeah, it's funny. I think you and James picked a bunch of the same teams this week, like the Lions and now the Panthers. This is a game the Saints needed to win it. If they lost, mm-hmm. if the Packers had lost, the Saints had a chance to get the number 1 seed. You're not gonna rest those guys and try to treat mm-hmm. this like a mini bye when you have a chance to control bye. It's a low chance, but there's still a chance. So I felt like this was a game where the Saints were going to go all out and do everything they could to win, and that's exactly what happened. We've seen some good things from the Panthers this year. I think they played the Saints a lot closer the first time they played them this mm-hmm. year. But the Saints are right now they're on a mission. This is Drew Brees' last year. He's doing everything he can to make sure that he's not the reason that they lose. They're going to need Drew Brees to beat Drew Brees in the playoffs, and hopefully do a little bit better outdoors because he's going to eventually have to leave that Superdome. So it's definitely, like you said, a game that the Saints needed to win, and they did it decisively. And I'm really excited to see Mitch Trubisky with some boinks and some slime on Nickelodeon. Whenever he slips, you put a banana in front of him or something. I don't know. It'd be hilarious. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel that. Absolutely, Joe. I definitely feel that with everything that you said. And, being the 2 seed, there is a high chance that they might not leave the Superdome if they can get somebody to upset the Packers, whether that's a Seahawks or Tom Brady, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or whoever they play. But also in the regular season, Bears took the Saints to overtime. Now, yes, it was in Chicago, so outside, but still it was a very close game. So a good matchup for them. And then another game that meant nothing in the AFC West. The Raiders beat the Broncos 32-31. I said it in the preview. I was like, I'm done picking the Broncos. That's the only reason why I picked the Raiders, and thank God that they won. So it didn't make me look silly. But we both went with the Raiders. Joe, any thoughts from this 32-31 shootout between these two teams?
It was a fun game to watch. Jerry Jeudy had that long touchdown. Mm-hmm. Nelson Aguilar had a long touchdown. God, Nelson Aguilar had a career year. I think it was like 48 catches, almost 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. It's the most receiving yards he's had, most receiving touchdowns, receiving yards per game. Props to him. He got shafted by a lot of fans in Philadelphia and a lot of hate. But he was part of our Super Bowl run. Without him that season, we don't win the Super Bowl. So I'm happy to see him finding success elsewhere. And hope the best for him. It's you never like to see up leaving your team and doing well somewhere else. But he had he dealt with a lot in Philadelphia, so it's cool to see him have some success. But I feel like he might be one of those players who just mentally, when the expectations and the pressure are on them, that's when they don't show up, kind of like Nick Foles. When Nelson Aguilar was, he was a rookie, he was really relied upon. He was bad. In 2017, when we had Alshon and Torrey Smith and Nelson Aguilar in the slot, he was great. And the next year, when Torrey Smith was gone, Mike Wallace got injured. It was Nelson Alshon, he was okay. And then the next year, when it was just Nelson, he was terrible. So now, he has an opportunity, in Oakland, in Las Vegas, and he made the most of it. They should bring him back next year on a much better deal since he took a very, very low deal and bet on himself, and he won. So good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Good for him. And now moving on to a game that was kind of important in the NFC, and then in the fourth quarter, and so it wasn't as important, as the Green Bay Packers solidified the number 1 seed in the NFC, beating the Bears 35-16. And the Bears were in it. And I believe it was like 23-16 or 20-16 Bears. They were driving, and then Mitch Trubisky threw a costly interception. And you just can't do that against a team like the Packers right now. And Aaron Rodgers, then boom, all of a sudden it's 28-16, 35-16. And you're like, well, that was fun. But the Bears still make the playoffs because the Cardinals lost. We'll get to that game in a little bit. But like we've been saying the past couple of weeks, I do not want to run into the Packers or the Chiefs because Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes, the State Farm is just fueling them, and they are really electric on the ball. And even a couple of weeks ago, Devontae Adams was shut down. Great. Robert Tonyan is going to score a couple of touchdowns, or this person. So nobody's stopping the Packers right now. Bears, they make the playoffs, but can't be a good feeling when you make the playoffs after losing a football game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you backdoored your way in. You got lucky. You had to. If you're the Giants, do you really want to have to rely on another team winning to get in? Like, come on, just tank. It's fine. So. But in all seriousness, the Bears are. They're not a good team. And they deserve to be in the playoffs. Mitch Trubisky has had a good couple weeks. They've put it together these last few weeks, and they made it. They're here. Good for them. But I don't think a team like the Bears deserves to be in it over a team like the Dolphins, or like, the football team also doesn't deserve to be in there over the Dolphins. Like, that's what's tough for me, like seeing a team like the Dolphins who had such a good year for Miami of all teams, out of nowhere. And the Bears are just, the football team was bad, and the Dolphins are the ones who get shafted and don't go in the playoffs. So be thankful, Chicago. Someone didn't tank for you, and you lucked out and made it in. Now let's see if they can do something with it.
Absolutely. I agree. And then a couple of teams next up, we have the AFC South to talk about. And the first game, Indianapolis Colts beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 28-14. I said the Jaguars were going to go 1-15. They beat the Colts in week 1, then lost their next 15 games. I can't believe I predicted that correctly. They have the number 1 pick, and I did it. And the Colts, like I said, just they did what they were supposed to do, win and see what happens. It wasn't flashy by any means, but they're really running the ball well with Jonathan Taylor, and we'll see if they can play upset against the Bills. And there was a brief moment that they almost won the division. But Joe, any thoughts from the Colts beating the Jaguars?
It was a little bit of a close game, for a good bit of it. The first half was a little tight, but they pulled away in the second half. Did what they needed to do. Tim, who's been playing quarterback the last few weeks for Mike Glennon? Dang it! I just freaking spoiled the answer.
Mike Glennon.
Mike Glennon is who has been playing quarterback for Jacksonville. I answered my own question like an idiot. What happened to Gardner Minshew? I thought he was their future. I thought he was going to be the guy. He wasn't. He's not. Is he?
No.
Is he bad? So why is he? Who's better, Mike Glennon or Gardner Minshew? Who do you think gives him a better chance to win?
Who's the coach? What system?
No. This year, this season, what just happened. Who would have given them a better chance to win in the games between Gardner Minshew and Mike Glennon when they were both healthy?
I'm just going to go with Gardner Minshew because he did get the 1 win.
That's exactly right. The Jaguars tanked for Trevor, and no one's talking about. They've had Mike Glennon in for weeks trying to sneak past the Jets and get that number 1 pick, and that's exactly what they did.
Gardner Minshew started against the Ravens. Hush.
All I'm saying, that's all I'm saying. Gardner Minshew gives them a better chance to win. They took him out, instead put in Mike Glennon. They knew what they were doing, and no one's talking about it.
I disagree, Joe. Well, anyways, now the next AFC South game, and I was saying that the Colts were winning the division for a couple of minutes very late in the game with the Titans beating the Texans 41 to 38. Oops, I typed 48, so technically the Texans won that one. But Titans win 41 to 38. And I believe part of my take said it best. They were like, we're glad that the Titans kind of went for it with 20 seconds and just threw a bomb to see if you catch it once or twice to get into field goal range, because if that game went into overtime, whoever won the coin toss was going to win that game because the defenses weren't stopping either team. So Titans squeak it out. I mean, I don't mind. I'm happy we're the 5 seed because that would have given us a matchup with the Titans or the Colts. Probably would prefer the Colts, but hey, revenge is best served on a cold platter, baby. So, but yeah, this was a very exciting game to watch. And, I'm happy, playoff Ravens, no matter what. I'm glad that a team with 20 seconds left was like, you know what, let's just throw it deep a couple times, see if we catch it, see if we can get into field goal range. Let's just not take a knee and go into overtime. Worst case, you throw an interception and the other team has their ball in their own 25, 30-yard line, just like no different than a punt in that situation. So happy that they were able to do it. Titans get the division win, and exciting game to watch. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it was a really exciting game to watch. Both these are playing really well, but these defenses do not show up. I mean, Texans have no one on defense but J.J. Watt. Titans don't really have that many people on defense at all. They've had a lot of injuries. A lot of people have, really just underplayed for them. It's really kind of shocking for a Mike Vrabel-led team to be such an offensive juggernaut and struggle so much on defense this year. So, that's only my concern for the Titans in the playoffs. Scoring points, that's obviously how you win. Offense is today's NFL, and that's how you beat a team like the Chiefs. But I mean, if that defense can't slow anybody down, you're going to get stopped a couple times. I mean, if you run the ball, Derrick Henry 2 times on 1st and 2nd down, it's 3rd and long, and you stop it. I mean, you're stopping Ryan Tannehill. Like, it's not Patrick Mahomes, although he has statistically been right there with Patrick Mahomes this season. But so that's my only concern with the Titans, especially going up against a team like the Ravens, who very well may be able to slow down Derrick Henry. Can Tannehill continue to beat you? And then can your defense slow anybody down? That's really going to be it. Defenses are going to game plan to stop Derrick Henry, force Ryan Tannehill to beat you. And then can your defense hold up enough? Can Ryan Tannehill do enough? It'll be fun to find out. Can't wait.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to talk about because I got a bunch of fun little statistics, and I don't want to say you can't stop Derrick Henry, but you can't go in and expect to just shut him down. He's going to get his 80, 90, 100 yards at least. Just the law of averages suggests that unless you go up 35-0 like the Browns did and he doesn't get the ball. So very fun to talk about the Titans-Ravens rematch of last year's playoff game in a couple of days, Joe. And now it's time for the NFC West, where last year we were saying, hey, this is one of the best divisions in football. Going into this year, we were like, with this 7th team, they could have all 4 teams making the playoffs. And then the last half of the season, we've been like, I don't know. Seahawks win, beat the 49ers 26-23, a little bit closer game as probably Seahawks and Seahawks fans would have liked. Seahawks do win the division, get the number 3 seed in the NFC. But I'm not feeling good about the Seattle Seahawks or Russell Wilson right now. I mean, what happened to this offense that was so electric the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, Joe?
That's the big question. I mean, it just seems like they're trying to force the run game again and not continuing to let Russ cook because, it's not like the personnel is any different. They're just not running these plays that were working for them so well earlier in the season. And I've seen a couple Seahawks fans and writers talk about how Seahawks defense has played so great over the past few weeks. Look at the quarterbacks they've played over the past few weeks. It's like, who is it just this week? CJ Beathard. I know Carson Wentz is in there. It's bad. it's bad. And when you don't take that stuff into consideration, it's a bad process. And that's how you trick yourself into thinking you're a decent or a good football team. You look at, I'm sorry to go on a little bit of an Eagles tangent. It's not much, but you look at the 4 teams that the Eagles beat this year. It was the 49ers, it was the Saints, it was the Giants, and I'm losing it.
I think it was the Giants twice, right? Didn't you sweep them?
No, the Giants beat us. Oh no, it was the Cowboys. The Cowboys, we beat them.
And half of the Bengals.
And half the Bengals. But the QBs for those teams, Cowboys, Ben DiNucci.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Dalton probably beats us. 49ers, Nick Mullins. It was close. And CJ Beathard was coming in the fourth quarter and got a little close. Taysom Hill. Need I say more? And then Daniel Jones, who is,
fell down.
Who fell. And
Evan Ingram dropped the third down. So
exactly. But arguably, Daniel Jones, I mean, this man only had 9 touchdown passes all season.
Right.
I don't know. So you got to look at, these factors and these details. Like, yeah, we beat the Saints. Yeah, we beat the 49ers, but they're devastated. It's the quarterbacks who are playing. So when I look at a team like the Seahawks, I'm very concerned because this defense hasn't played anyone over the past few weeks and still hasn't been dominant. And the offense has not been nearly what we saw it was in the first half of the season. So I definitely have a lot of concerns for Seattle. But I'll be pulling for them. They got a good matchup this year, or an interesting matchup this week with the Rams.
And speaking of the Rams, Joe, that's the next game. The Rams beat the Cardinals 18-7. They keep the Cardinals out of the playoffs, and they solidify their spot, although they needed some crazy things to happen for them to not make the playoffs. Or I think they would have made it with the Bears losing anyways. But they win 18-7, and I said it in the pregame. I was like, this defense is just too good. The Arizona offense has been really disappointing. And aside from the Hail Murray and beating Jalen Hurts in his first road start, the Cardinals ended the season like 0-6 or 0-7. Like they fell off big time. So I think that's a big story that they need to focus on in the offseason. But the Rams, with their backup quarterback, they do just enough, and they win 18-7. Was it pretty? Nope. But we're in the part of the season where pretty wins don't matter. All you gotta do is win by 1 point.
Yep. Yeah. I picked the Cardinals to win this game. James picked the Rams. He was feeling good about them. I really, just saw this as Kyler Murray versus John Wofford. Like, that's really all I needed to know. And then Kyler Murray gets hurt on the first drive. So, you hate to see that. I don't know if the game goes differently, if he plays the whole game or what. But, there's definitely a lot of concerns for the Cardinals and for Cliff Kingsbury. I saw the stat today, like, he's had all these great quarterbacks, and like from college, like Baker Mayfield, Kyler,
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to next. And never won that many games. What was it, like no more than 7 games, 8 games, something like that? Like I've definitely got some questions and concerns about Cliff Kingsbury now, especially with how I saw him coach a lot this year too. He was very conservative in a lot of close games and a lot of tight spots when you'd like to see a young offensive guy be a little bit more aggressive in those situations, like a Doug Peterson going for it on 4th down, instead of kicking that field goal against Washington. That's what you want to see unless you're tanking. But yeah, so definitely sucks for the Cardinals. I felt really good about them this year. They've still improved leaps and bounds to where they were just a year ago, taking Kyler Murray with the number 1 overall pick. So
yeah, and now I think that they'll take another step next year. I think, especially giving Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins hopefully a regular offseason to do a bunch of workouts and all that type of stuff. And they still have some young pieces, so I think they'll do just fine. And now, Joe, we already talked about the last game of the night, the football team beating the Eagles 20-14. We both went with the football team, and Joe, you went 13-3 this week 17. I went 12-4, and I texted you. I counted up all of our records from the 2020 season. One of us went 177, 78, and 1. And the other was one game worse of 176, 79, and 1. Joe, I'm going to ask you first. Who do you think had the better record by one game?
Oh, God. I'm going to go with myself.
You would be correct. You went 177, 78, and 1. I went 176, 79, and 1. It's probably because I picked the Ravens JV squad to beat the Steelers. I'm going to say that was the difference of the game this year.
I picked a lot of Eagles wins this year. My God.
You did. Yeah,
I should have picked that tie. I was so close. Oh my God.
But if it's any consolation, both of our records is basically a 69 winning percentage. So nice. But Joe, that does it for the 2020 regular season, man. I mean, first of all, we're here. We made it. Couple of speed bumps, but we made it. Everything went on as scheduled for the most part. Playoffs start this week on schedule. Any final thoughts for the 2020 regular season as we look ahead to the playoffs in 2021?
You know, it had far too long since Philadelphia had been the villain, and we're back. And I love it. I love this. Like, I would have probably been super depressed, you know, Sunday night and Monday if, you know, I'm just like, man, like, I hate Howie Roseman. Doug Peterson's back. I don't know what's going on with Carson Wentz and all these different reports. Like, what is happening? Like, what is going to happen in the future? I've just been loving this. This is hilarious to me that we're all just so hung up on this. Like, it cracks me up. I mean, again, it was the logical thing to do. So, yeah. Love being the villain. I love the hate. This is what Philly thrives on, and I can't wait to see us come back next season on a tear, and we'll take the league by storm, and y'all will never, ever live this down, because this will go down as the greatest coaching moment in NFL. This is what is going to start the dynasty. This franchise is on the up and up, clearly, and we will look back on this episode where Erik Sawyer called me a fool, and I said that this would be the best move in NFL history. You heard it here first, folks. Joey D and Timmy B on the Flea Flicker. 2020. Let's fucking go.
So, at Freezing Cold Takes, there you go. There you go. There's do the little writing emoji, but I think it's going to be absolutely more hilarious when the Eagles trade back from the 6th pick to the 9th pick. That's just going to roll this guy.
Well, I won't be mad with that either. That's also like why it had value. I mean, this is a team that not only do we need to get good stud players, we need as many of these young players, cheap rookie contracts as possible. And if you're trading back from number 9 to number 12, you're not getting as much of a haul as trading back from number 6 to number 12. You know, that's just me. So we'll see what happens, but definitely won't be with number 9, because you know who has number 9 overall pick, Timmy B?
The Giants.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Oh,
the Giants have number 10.
Oh, all right. Well, hey guys, that's going to wrap up our 2020 Week 17 recap. Tune in a couple of days as we will be picking the playoff games. And if you are a guest on the show, we'll also text you, but also text us your picks for the playoff games. We'll give you guys a shout out in the show. So tune in probably Friday afternoon for our picks for the games on Saturday and Sunday. Super wild card weekend, as there are 2 extra games. And everybody have a great day. I don't know, enjoy like college basketball for the next couple of days. There's no more football during the week. So you know, be on the edge of your seat for our playoff picks, and we will see you soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Philly, Philly, baby.